Welcome to this episode of Business Under the Influence. I'm Kristen Dees. The reason why this exists, I'm so sorry to everyone. The gentleman to my, you're below me, that's weird, is David. He has a long storied history in leadership in a variety of areas, including cults and monasteries, but here he is today. And he actually, fun fact about David, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but he was actually invited to be a member of the USA bobsled team in the Olympics in 1992, but had to turn it down due to other commitments. Very busy, very important.
There was a flash sale on Beanie Babies, and I couldn't pass that up.
Dude, so you're like a millionaire now?
He bought the wrong ones.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. He's actually like in the hole $7,000
still to this day.
With inflation.
All right. This is Ben. Ben has a lot of experience in making businesses go good, and he has some letters after his name to prove it. Fun fact about Ben is this is kind of topical, so I thought it might be a fun thing to bring up. But he once won a British game show to marry the Queen. But right before he tied the knot, he found out he was both allergic to corgis and Prince Andrew.
Everyone's allergic to Prince Andrew.
Yikes. On that note, this is my good friend Kristen. She has a long history of leadership and management in the corporate sector, as well as a small business owner. A fun fact about Kristen is that in high school, she was voted most likely to start a cult.
That's a true fact. Yeah, I can't dispute that. And why would I? You know what I mean? Like, why would I? So this episode, listen, is a redo because we got a little out of hand. So
we flew too close to the sun.
We flew too close to the sun. We were like, we get drunk on school nights? Okay. Yeah, so we're talking about how to figure out where all the money goes as a small business owner, which is very confusing. Oh, but before we start, should we do drinks?
Yes,
absolutely.
Definitely. Oh, I did a little pre-gaming. I did a nice Twilight Pale Ale and a glass of rye whiskey. I'm now on an Imperial IPA for my next one, and then I've got my backup, should I so need it, into a nice hazy IPA.
Oh,
a man of many cultures.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that we don't throw up more often, but go on. Ben?
All right. I pre-gamed with similar wine, whiskey. Now we're on to the Freya Blonde Ale from the Viking Braggot Company of Eugene, Oregon. Shout out, it's fantastic. Should go there if you're ever in Eugene.
Truth.
I am drinking Kirkland's finest Chardonnay, Vine Evergreen Vineyard 2019. It's from Washington State. And every time I drink white wine, I'm reminded why I don't drink white wine. So that's about where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wisdom.
Yeah.
Not great.
Also, K-Vine is
nauseous.
The latest hip-hop artist.
Yeah.
That is for sure a name I would see come across the radio.
Oh, I was like, is that real though?
No.
Like, okay.
It can be.
Okay.
New career?
Yeah. Yeah, because we have too many. We're tue many careers.
When did I adult so hard?
Yeah. What's the point? We have like 50 years. Isn't that what we figured out, Ben? We had like 50 years ago. Like, let's like spread it out a little, you know? Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about where does the money go? Ben, where do you start? Like,
oh boy.
A budget or like don't spend money? Like, what's the plan?
So the topic on the whole is like, I'm a small business. I'm doing something. I'm providing a service. I receive money for my services. And then I have overhead costs. I have to buy things for those services, be it glitter, be it alcohol, whatever fantastic business you want to create.
So a strip club?
I was going to say a unicorn rodeo bar, but sure.
Ooh, we're going with unicorn rodeo bar. What are the costs for a unicorn rodeo bar? But I think the costs are the place you want to start. In looking at a lot of small businesses, if you aren't meeting the required overhead, that's just a minimum line. That is the hard stop bottom. And there are and there are exceptions to that rule. So when you're starting up, you will have like startup loans, you'll have lines of credit, things like that. But for long-term stability, there's a minimum line you need to meet. And so you need to have a handle on what are your overhead costs, whether that's daily, weekly, monthly, annually, whatever those add up to.
So it almost sounds like you have to know how much things cost, and then you have to make sure you're making that money.
Yes. I mean, the second part of that statement is you now have a minimum you can possibly charge for your services to break even.
Okay.
And then if that is over your customer's price threshold, you have a problem. If your glitter unicorn is $1,000 and people are only willing to pay $10 for it, you don't have a product or a business. It's not a great idea. Bail now.
I feel like you saw a lot of this with like Starbucks really hitting like everyone wants cool fancy coffee in the Northwest, at least. And we saw a lot with like Dutch Bros and then coffee culture, and then a whole bunch of small mom and pops were like, oh my God, coffee stands, very little actual square footage, very little upkeep as far as power, anything like that. Coffee just prints money. Like, it's so cheap. How much can it be to brew a cup of coffee? And then they didn't realize how much you have to keep stocked up of all the extra, the muffins and things like that, the perishables, and then just keeping them staffed, because you ran into a lot of them with where the owners had to staff it all the time. And then they realized, holy shit, I can't afford another employee. We're working here 6 days a week. This isn't fun anymore. And so they did not fully realize that they can't price at like Starbucks price, because Starbucks has so much capital behind it, and they were trying to stay there and realized they couldn't clear that cost anymore. And a lot of them just immediately went out 2-3 months, 6 months, and then when they realized I can't actually match that anymore. But if they bumped it up by 75 cents, people are like, well, there's literally a Starbucks on every block. Why would I not just go
It's
there?
when you run into economies of scale, where Starbucks can sell the exact same drink for less because they are buying the coffee cheaper than you are. When they put in an order for ungodly number of tons of coffee, they are getting it per pound cheaper than the mom and pop shop. And you could dive into 100 conversations on where they're sourcing it from, whether that supply chain is ethical, whether the price they are getting is fair. But the fact of the matter is, it is then difficult to compete against economies of scale in either manufacturing or sourcing materials.
So what about like 80% of entrepreneurs, based on my internet research, bootstrap and don't get financing of any kind and just like start a fucking business. So how is that different from like the example that you I forgot words. I was like, what's the fucking word?
Glitter
it's
unicorns.
Example. It's example. Where you're talking about like, having financing. So like you go get funding for this startup and it's going to be a year before you start turning a profit, yada, yada, yada. But like, what about people that are like bootstrapping shit like myself?
I feel like there is an important distinction between either a lifestyle company, as it's called, or I don't want to call it a mom and pop shop, because mom and pop shops can be absolutely incredible and some of the best places you've ever visited, and honestly, some of the best run businesses, but an innovation strategy. So when you think of a startup, you think of VC funding. We aren't even profitable, but people have given us $30 million because they think we're going to be profitable someday. That is a wildly different concept than starting a home painting business, or I'm starting an interior design firm. I'm starting an architecture firm. All of these things are relatively well understood industries, and you are simply setting out to make your own version of that similar thing. And those are two different classes. So when you talk about entrepreneurs, 80% of entrepreneurs bootstrapping kind of makes sense, because VC firms are not diving into another architecture firm that has no separating value proposition. They're diving into the one or two places that they see with a new form of power generation, nuclear fusion. Some company claims they can do nuclear fusion. That is the kind of wild unicorn that these places are talking about when they say entrepreneur. And so it's really broken down by lifestyle company versus innovation YOLO, if you will. Full send into the new, backed by millions of dollars and a dream and way too much cocaine. But I do think
I did it wrong. Yeah, I think I did it wrong. Yeah.
Yep. The cocaine innovation route sounds fun.
Yeah,
I think I could have had a cult by now. Yeah. Okay. VC also means venture capital for those of us that didn't know that before they knew Ben.
Explaining
Um,
acronyms, brief tangent on venture capital.
Yeah.
So venture capital means you are venturing out with your capital, presumably a large sum. So you have $20 million and you want to invest in some guy with a new idea. That's venture capital. And there are lots of firms. That's where, Snapchat came from. That's where Airbnb came from. That's where I think Facebook got VC funding very early on. But when you think of the Bay Area startup, that is venture capital, is the bulk of money propping these businesses up in the early term.
And that's more of, like you said, like an invention of some sort. So
Mhm.
innovation, something new. All of those things were not things that we had before. And it was like, hey, we're going to do something different and like hope it works out with lots of money, and then cocaine.
Yeah.
In no particular order.
Yeah, like we're gonna build houses with blockchain. Does it
Right.
make
Literally.
sense? No, but with enough cocaine, maybe.
Yeah.
With enough cocaine,
really-
maybe, is a good life motto.
Ooh, title of the
It's not.
episode.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Okay, so
But your original question was on like is bootstrapping okay?
I
Well,
mean, that's not necessarily the phrasing, but I mean, like the difference in the way that you were describing, like where does the money go, how to plan for where the money goes is different when you're bootstrapping and you're inventing the money as you go than getting $10 million or even $100,000 or whatever it is to be like, hey, or if it's a loan, even because like sometimes people do get financing from the bank. Although, side note, it's usually guaranteed on their personal finances first. That's like a whole different thing. But like,
It's terrifying.
what do you do? Yes. Yeah. So like planning for all that kind of shit. Like, how do you where does it go,
Yeah.
Ben?
Yeah.
And like the question I would add to that is, you always hear companies don't make money in their first year. How long do you stay losing money before you realize you're a failure?
I've made a huge mistake.
This is going to sound rough or be very heartening to a lot of businesses. I don't know where you are in this journey listening to this podcast, but the standard value that I've heard is most businesses are not truly profitable, like paid back all of their loans and are paying their owners like 5 years. 4 to 5 years is when you begin to pay back that initial investment from bootstrapping and getting bank loans, which is
Well, I define in my brain, and maybe this is like bootstrapping to me is, let's just say, starting a consulting business in your apartment with no
Hypothetically.
overhead, hypothetically. And you're just like making money on the, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing, you don't really have any overhead. You're just like pulling some money in. Or I've had clients before that, actually more than one, that are like, I think I have a business now. Like I started doing a
Oops.
thing and then people started paying me for it. And I think I should have a separate bank account, probably. That seems right. So they're just like kind of doing a thing and then they're like, ah, fuck. Like that to me is a whole different type of operation, but that's actually a pretty large percentage of actual entrepreneurs, I would say.
Totally. And that'll quickly become cost analysis, or where does the money go? If I'm building something, if I'm, I don't know, carving wood and selling signs, custom signs that people want, I'm already kind of looking at, I know how much the wood costs, whether it's fancy. I know how much my tooling costs for either jigsaws, wood stains, sandpaper, whatever it might be. There's a big volume of stuff that is required to make what I am offering. And when you have that realization, when you're like, I should have a separate bank account, you should also start the journey with an Excel sheet of, I should know exactly how much it costs me to make X or Y or Z. If I look at a sign that is 3 feet wide and a foot tall, it's got 2 colors on it, I need to sand it, I need to stain it, you can add up how much those materials cost, and then you can time yourself. How long did it take you to make that? Then how much do you want to get paid? Do you want to get paid $30 for each of the hours you spent making that sign? Cool. Now your cost of goods for that sign is, I don't know, $180. That's a minimum price. If you don't sell that sign for $180, you are not breaking even. So then on the other end, that's where your money is going. And then on the other end, you need to understand the price sensitivity of your customer. How much do people expect to pay or are willing to pay for a custom wooden sign? If they're willing to pay $500, and that's really common, great. You have between $180 and $500 to fuck around, to play with how much you want to pay yourself, to play with new materials, new tooling, whatever it might be. But that difference between your customer's expectation and price sensitivity and your cost of goods sold is where your business lies. If you have not balanced those two, you got to start on that immediately.
Okay. So, you know how like we have this conversation sometimes about how you have like a fancy degree and everything I've learned has been like by accident mostly. Sometimes when you tell these stories, I feel a little bit better about I'm like, okay, all right, I've told people this before. Yep, okay, this makes sense.
This is reasonable.
Maybe not with the same words, like we're doing a cost analysis. I'm like, I don't think you're charging enough, and we should do some math. But it involves tracking time because every fucking entrepreneur does not track their time. Like at
That's
some
a big
point,
one.
they're like, my time is free. And I'm like, it is never free. It is the only, it's your most limited resource.
But it's a
But
passion.
I'm passionate about it.
I love unicorns.
Yeah, and your passion will murder you. Okay, so the note that I made myself, sorry, side note, was like testing pricing, and I think in the example of a person who's making a product and there is a very clear cost of goods sold versus someone who's doing like what I'm doing, where there is essentially no overhead. It's all my brain and like Zoom. How do you figure out how to price your shit?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And
Also,
not one.
I like how your note was like test pricing and mine was like workshop. BenHandlesYourWood.com. That's all I could think during this
Done.
entire wooden sign thing. And you're like, oh, let me learn something important. And I'm like, ooh, website name.
Well, what was the thing that Ben, you said something about bottoms, and I was like,
Ooh,
keep it together.
something power bottom, firm wood.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, like pricing theory. Because I mean, I have one perspective of like my life as an entrepreneur on the internet, and like all of the hustle culture and the conversation that's out there about like charge more. It's like, but why though? Like, why? I don't have a calculation to say it cost me this much to use my brain. Besides like sadness and despair,
I mean,
like that
ooh,
costs
I would
something.
like
But
one of those. Like, what if I could
yeah.
quantify my depression in Excel?
Yes. My anxiety is my superpower. I like to call it strategy, and you're welcome. Oh,
I feel like it's a
childhood
really good
trauma.
question, though.
Yeah. I've had
Like,
wine.
what do you do? What do you do when you have a very nebulous cost of goods? What do you do when you're just telling people words and you want to get paid for the words that you say? Sounds great. Comparison is, I mean, you could be a college professor is one, and then they pay you a salary and you're like, got it. That number of cents is how much my words are worth. But being a consultant,
I don't like that.
or
Yeah, I don't like that at all. Mm-mm.
yeah, you have a dollar value on your life, David. But how much can you charge when you have almost no cost of goods sold, but you don't want to sell your services for $1? You can still create a general minimum of would I work a job for $17 an hour? Would I sit down and get paid and have a conveyor belt of people come in front of me for an hour each, presumably, and get paid $17 an hour to talk to this person? Probably not. And then depending on your experience level, which is really what the question is about, because like a 16-year-old could be a consultant, and if you want to hire them, fucking sure, they probably have some social media insights, but like
yeah.
Is their time and insight into the economics and functions of the world going to be as great as someone who has started several businesses? Not as much. So there's a cost discrepancy there. And I feel like comparison is really going to be your main tool. Looking at other consulting firms, what they are potentially charging is going to give you an idea of customer price sensitivity. Someone has done that legwork for you. If there's 5 other firms charging $200 an hour for one consultant, there you go. That seems to be what people expect for the industry. And you can try to charge more of that or more than that, depending on your experience level or kind of niche, or you can charge less than that if you, for whatever reason, either you want to be, yeah.
What about the measurement of ROI?
Return on investment is kind of nil. If you've hit that minimum, like would I work for $17 an hour? No. Would I work for $20 an hour? Yes. If you've hit
No,
that
I mean in the valuation. Like I am telling you that I will give you 5 times the money. Like If you pay me
Oh,
$200 an hour, you're guaranteed to
right.
get, if
Expected
our
value.
project is $10,000, you're going to
Mhm.
make $50,000 on the result.
Value proposition. It's gonna sound really bad, but fuck them. They paid you for your services. You provided that service. As a consultant, you are not guiding their business. You do not have the authority to make decisions for their business. Maybe you do. There are some contracts that allow for that. But in general, you've upheld your half of the bargain, which is, we can get into contract law in the United States. But if they can either choose to listen to you or not. If I pay someone $500 for 2 hours of consulting and I make a bunch of business decisions based on that, I might make money or lose money. I took a chance by hiring that service. And if I believe in what they provided to me and that loses me money, that's unfortunate. That's also very nebulous and long string or series of events. That may be the hard answer for the customer, is that if you are hiring a consultant, you also need to be aware of your own industry, of your own business, of everything that's going on, and you can take or leave their advice.
So if I'm looking at how much to charge something for something, pretty much what I'm hearing is if I'm not like a VC unicorn where I'm inventing something new no one's ever seen before, is someone's already always done the legwork. And so it's just going to take, if I want to open up a business in unicorn rodeos, that's a VC. If I want to open up a business in sign making, someone's already done the legwork on how much average cost is, supplies are cost, how things are charged. And so if I want to open up a small business or accidentally fall back asswards into a small business because people be buying my benhandlesyourwood.com signs, then I just have to be willing to put in, if I'm passionate about this as a business, I need to put in the time to research so I'm not coming in blind.
Yeah, research is huge. Just figure out, because honestly, it really comes down to the customer expectation. It doesn't matter what your profit margin is, it matters what the customer expects to pay for this type of service or anything that they think of as an analogous service. And that can be annoying.
Yeah, I feel like especially in the world of Google, where someone's just going to Google wooden sign makers near me, and you're just going to be a result in a list of aggregated results.
Or
Well, and I think, oh, go ahead, Ben.
Or are a lot of these services, or like educational consulting services, is the price kind of suppressed in this age of YouTube Academy and Googling? There isn't as much need for a lot of the base level consulting or how-to services as there used to be. And the effort required to do that job has not decreased. The cost input has not decreased, but the accessibility has increased. And what the customer might expect to pay, or the value, as Kristen mentioned, that they expect to get out of hiring someone versus learning from YouTube, has seriously increased, right? That gap is a lot wider than it used to be because you can learn a lot of shit on the internet.
I think for me, like just in my experience over the last few years of doing this, is that like I've never personally really had an issue with charging what I think I'm worth or what my experience is worth. Basically, it's been a progressive increase over time while I like refine my services. So like at the beginning, I didn't charge very much because I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like I have some brain juice and shit, and like I'm good at some stuff, but like you kind of test some theories and you like work it out or whatever. So now it's like that part's not the thing. It's like, what was my fucking point? I had
Customer
a whole point.
price sensitivity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I think it kind of depends because like, so for consulting / coaching, people just kind of like charge whatever they want to charge. And there's this whole like culture out there of charge more. And so you've got people running around willy-nilly charging $10,000 a month for fucking coaching, and they have no idea what they're doing. They're just like, oh, I took a certification and I Googled how to run a business. I'm back. It came back. All right. So the whole point that I started with was you can Google shit, and like I do that. A lot of entrepreneurs, like everyone, like there's a lot of DIY. Let me Google some stuff and figure out like the base level understanding of what I need for this X, Y, or Z. And then as my business evolves, I start to invest more and more money into either learning at a higher level or hiring someone to do something for me, like those kinds of things. Because at some point, your brain, if you don't already have the expertise, it can't do the thing. Like I could Google physics, which is fucking made up. Like we can all just agree
100%.
that physics is not real. Yeah, it's absolute bullshit. But I could Google physics. I could teach myself physics, but it is not the same as having someone teach you or do it for you that really knows what they're talking about. So I think like as far as like knowledge people, like you can I give away a shit ton of stuff for free because one, I do genuinely want to help people. I'd also like to be a flabbergillionaire, but like I want to help people. But that's how people like get to like test whether or not you actually know what you're talking about too. Is like, hey, here's some content that I have that helps people out. And then at some point people are like, hey, can you actually help me with this thing, this project, where I really want to start selling 10,000 widgets a month instead of 1,000, like that kind of shit. So it's just it's such a tricky space, the like brain juice stuff.
I really feel like it highlights the gap between knowledge and comprehension. Because I could know an equation in physics. I could Google any equation, and given the variables to put into it, I could presumably come to the right answer. There's a ton of calculators. It's fucking wild. You can do like separation of variables if you just Google the variables and Mathematica.
No one knows that. No one knows what that means.
Some like one of our listeners will know that. And
he's not even speaking English anymore.
Yeah, I fucking blacked out. Yeah.
But versus understanding, where I'm using those things as a tool, but I understand the core concepts of what is happening, and I can adjust my model or I can adjust my thinking based on that core understanding. Similarly, I could say, oh, I know how to run a unicorn bar. Great. I'm sure I could find on Google the average price of liquor. I'm sure I could find on Google a bunch of other stuff. How much do unicorns cost? I don't know. Do you lease unicorns? Probably. But to truly know how to do it, to run a unicorn bar and then understand a lot of the tacit skills or the tribal knowledge of leadership, of unicorn temperament, of like how much sprinkles stick to shit, that is understanding. And you aren't necessarily going to get that from Google. And I feel like that's what a lot of people miss in just plug and play variables for how to run a business well. And that's me. Hello. I learned a bunch of formulas. Pay me to help you out.
Do you remember when I texted you guys the other day and I was like, I literally had to Google how to do a subtraction formula?
Yep. Yes. Yeah.
In
5
Excel,
minus 3.
like,
in Excel. Not,
right. Yeah.
Not how subtraction works.
Yeah. Not the concept in general, but I was like trying to create like a little calculator and I was like, how do I subtract something? Like, I know how to do, like, my proudest moment is being like, yes, I can do equals parenthesis, and then it's like, there's a sum in there. That's the only one I can do. And then I was like, how do I fucking subtract something though? And it's literally just subtract it.
With the minus sign.
With the minus sign. Whoo! But I can't do a VLOOKUP though. That shit fucking blows my mind. So anyway.
Yeah.
Pivot tables.
My victory was
I can do a pivot table.
Yeah, you just right click and say pivot table. My victory was being able to get something to change colors when it came close to a date a year out from something.
That's so exciting.
Right?
Yeah.
I got it to be like, when it's a year out from this date, I need it, or like 10 months out, I need it to turn yellow. Then when it's like 11 months out, I need to turn orange, and then I need to turn red when it's 12 months out. Oh my! Also, by the way, Excel is absolute horseshit at actually creating. I have to like stack a variable on a thing. Someone's gonna be like, "Oh, you can just put this in parentheses; it'll solve it." No, bullshit. It does like week outs really well, month out really good, years. No, fuck off.
There's
so
a
bad.
dog under a blanket.
Oh, he loves being under blankets. Yeah, it's his jam. He's a denning dog, I guess is what they.
That's adorable.
Yeah, he sleeps. He has like the whole other side of the bed. Sorry, David, you were on like a rant.
Excel is not a programming language.
No. Okay. So anyway, I did actually have a rant, and there's this growing trend on a couple of the podcasts I listen to of business experts who are starting to get burnt out on business college people that graduate bachelor's in business, because they do a lot of, I read this, I watched this, I listened to this podcast, as I say, listening to this podcast, but I did this, I read this, I did this, and they're like, okay, well, what work have you had? And they're like, well, I left high school and then I got into this really good school. Like, they're like, oh, I went to Wharton's, I went to Yale, I went to this, and they're like, yeah, but what jobs have you worked? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, I went to school so I could run a business. And he's like, I was listening to a podcast where a guy's like, I just don't hire those people anymore.
Oh, same.
If you have not worked a job and you're telling me how to run my business, you literally have no idea how anything works. So I don't even want you. So he's like, there's this growing trend in these places where people are coming out of these factory mill of like Ivy League business schools, knowing absolutely nothing about how the business world actually works. And they're just like, oh, I read this book, or I read this case study, or I did this, which that's all good if you have application. It's the same thing as Ben said. Oh, I memorized this thing. And they're like, okay, well, tell us the speed of a particle splashing into water. And they're like, well, tell me every variable. They're like, no, like you know the
you
thing.
don't have every
You
variable.
don't have every variable.
Yeah,
You have to figure it
that's the
out. And they're
game.
like, nope,
Yeah.
I can't anymore. So that's, I think what you're seeing more and more is people get like YouTube smart, but when it actually hits the moment where you're like, oh, do you know how your team is going to react when you tell them that you're reducing their headcount but increasing their hours?
Yeah.
It's like, that's the smart decision to make your business money, but how do you tell your team that without them burning the entire fucking building down?
Yeah, I've actually I've talked about that like a couple times recently too, where it's like as someone who's been a hiring manager for a minute, I look so young on Zoom though. I will almost always discount a college education. Like they will lose points if they only have a college education, or maybe like a college job. They worked at fucking Jamba Juice or whatever. Because they don't. It's the practical application.
Don't diss Jamba Juice. That's a.
I mean,
that's
it's
a
fucking
landmine.
bomb, dude. Like
it's a landmine of entitled people wanting overpriced juice. Like that's
like,
probably like that's the Vietnam of
so
like
good,
retail.
That's
like
in the trenches.
Also, they work in a
Taking
mall
Karen
usually,
shots.
so that's like a whole different. Like we've worked retail,
Yeah.
okay, and then like Jamba Juice, like in a mall, whole different fucking beast. Those people deserve. They should have like a pension after like 6 months at fucking Jamba Juice.
Oh,
Anyway, I digress. Actually, David digressed. That was not my fault. So fuck, what was I even saying? Oh yeah. So like if somebody comes in like fresh out of college, way less likely to get like even take them seriously than somebody who has worked at a job from high school on, because they just like don't understand how the world works, much less how a business works. So like to your point of somebody going to business school and then they're just like, I should be an operations manager. And I'm like, but you can't even talk to people. So no.
I have a tangent story about this.
Ooh, go
So
on.
pure academia is what is being discussed, but
Ooh.
working for major corporation X or Y, I don't know if we're at the point of just look me up on LinkedIn. It doesn't matter. But we're on the intro training courses.
Shmee.
And every major corporation you go to is going to have some sort of onboarding. You have training courses for how to use a ladder. You have training courses for cybersecurity, any kind of web-based training. Some of those have to be in person, like electrical training or chemical training, stuff like that. A lot of chemical handling. And should be, I will say, should be with a professional instructor if you're going to handle trimix or hydrofluoric acid.
I agree, but
so I'm in one of these courses at one of these first jobs that I start in corporate America, and there is a slew of newly minted PhD chemical process engineers. And they are super smart. They have a PhD in chemical engineering. They have done school since the day they were born. And they are the biggest fucking twats. Oh my God. If you're in a safety class with someone telling you about hydrofluoric acid, don't get into an argument with them about how technically safe it is depending on the kind of glove you use, right? You are not petitioning like OSHA or any of these organizations to change their health and safety standards. You are trying to flex on the rest of the class that you are a chemical engineer PhD. Half of that class is also chemical engineer PhDs. Don't shut up and listen. If it's your first job, I don't care if you have a doctorate, shut up and listen is my my life advice.
Yeah, no one fucking cares, because to David's point, I mean, should you crawl in the garbage compactor? Probably not. Are you going to because something fucking got stuck again? Absolutely. Yeah. You just open the door so the camera can't see. I'm just saying. I've heard.
and you just say, Corey, do not walk away and take a smoke break. I am in the compactor. You stop everyone from turning the compactor on. Corey, don't let anyone in here.
You have one job.
Hypothetically.
One job. Yeah. But like if I die, just walk away. You know what I'm saying? Like don't ruin your life.
That was my tangent on first time jobs.
Yeah. You don't know anything. Shut the fuck up. Okay. Pay your
Mhm.
dues like the rest of us salty motherfuckers.
But bring your ideas. But shut up.
But also don't. Yeah. You know,
But also don't.
your ideas are dumb. We've already tried them.
Mhm.
Thank you.
But as a business owner, hiring these people, you've got some overhead associated. Just gonna circle back.
I was about
Oh.
to say,
That.
so where does the
Oh,
money
Drink.
go?
Yeah. Where does the
That's a
money
question I
go?
have for you two. How do you cost new employees? You have a job that needs to be done. How do you determine how much you should pay that person?
Oh no.
Oh,
Depends. I mean, like in corporate land or small business land.
small business land. Corporate land is a
So
mythical different place.
yeah, that's a made
Yeah,
up
there's
bullshit. Like
no rules
someone
there.
tells you what you get to pay
Yeah.
people, you don't get to decide. So you have to be able to pay somebody what you can competitively pay somebody for the job that you're hiring for. Because like the thing that I like people debate a lot right now too is no one wants to work. And I'm like, no one wants to work for $7.50, Karen. So that's the problem. And I think that there's a lot of businesses that also don't have super healthy environments either. So it's like nobody also wants to work for $17 an hour for a shitty fucking boss that treats them like they don't matter and they should just be super grateful for the opportunity to sweep shit up, like actual shit, you know? One, there's the pay aspect of like, what is an equivalent pay rate for this job? So if you're hiring like your first like whoever person, what does this job make? And can you pay them a little bit more and give them a little bit more flexibility? Because like you can look up pay rates, like what does the average operations manager make? What like at what size of company? Like there's ways to figure all this shit out. But can you pay somebody competitively, preferably a little bit more, or offer them like cool benefits like flexible schedule, being able to work from home sometimes because people are super into that right now. And if you can do that, then awesome. If you need somebody to be in person, then cool. But like pay them. Stop trying to pay people the minimum that you can possibly fucking pay them. Like that's
how
the
you get the
whole.
minimum person.
Yes.
Oh,
And it's how
that's
you
deep.
get like perpetual fucking churn. Like if you want to be able to keep people, you have to fucking pay them better. You have to pay them better than any other company pays them, period. I mean, it doesn't have to be like $100 an hour versus $18 an hour. But if everyone else is paying 18, can you pay 19 or 20? Because that equates to either $2,080 a year or $4,080 a year. No, somebody do it. 4160.
Yep, there we go.
Anyway, it's a very minimal impact. If you're already considering paying somebody 30 grand a year, then like a couple extra grand, if that's going to break you, then you shouldn't be hiring a fucking employee. Anyway, did that answer the question?
100% agree.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the overhead is not just the what you can pay them, it's the benefits you can offer, which again, don't nickel and dime that. You might pay the same, but if you offer health insurance and you offer 100% covered, really good health insurance, awesome. That factors into your overhead costs as a business. That's probably still pretty small compared to your global overhead costs. But if that creates stability for you, that might be worth it. So in determining costs, it's not purely this balance of costs you spend versus money incoming. Within that black box, as we talked about it, there's a human element. If I can provide these people healthcare with a little bit more overhead cost and that reduces the profit that I make, that could be fine if I'm creating a ridiculous amount of stability. If I go from 70% turnover to 20% turnover by making a little bit less profit, do that. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
The amount you'll lose in the long run with that much turnover and that many shitty employees and hiring the minimum, it's not worth your time. It's not worth your headache. Give people benefits, create a stable platform that you can grow from.
It's the like if the words out of your mouth are nobody wants to work, then you are the problem.
Truth.
Yeah. I think
Period. You're the fucking problem.
Yeah, I think the big thing people don't realize is if you hire someone and give the bare minimum, you're just training them for the next person to pay them more. And
Also,
Truth.
relationship
take that-
advice. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
anyone wants to like this also, by the way, this
Fucking
applies to
yikes.
relationships too.
Yeah.
If you give the bare minimum, you will get the bare minimum every
Yep.
time.
Yeah, so like the big thing you have to think about is like when you train, especially as a small business owner where you have maybe 3 to 12 to 25 people, you as the business owner is probably the one that is going to be doing the hands-on training. Which means now every time you train a new person, you paid them $7.50 an hour, but you make 35 an hour. So now you're paying $42.50 an hour to train a new person, just to have them leave after 3 weeks, to pay the next person essentially $42.50 to train them up, to have them leave, because your money, your hours are going into training that next person as well. So if you can say, instead of $7.50, what if I offered 14, and now I'm almost doubling everybody else's, but I never have to train another person again because this person is going to be here for the rest of their natural life.
For 14 an hour.
I mean, like, this is like
Also,
I'm doing
yeah,
Florida.
Welcome to America.
Yeah, this
to
is
your
Florida
point though,
prices.
you
Yeah.
give them fucking raises. Like, don't give them the fucking 27 cents
Ooh.
like an hour, like
Oh.
3% cost of, like, give them a fucking buck in
this-
6 months or a year or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, give it something like relatively substantial, because that's also
Mhm.
still not that much.
I have a
Like,
spicy take discussion
Yeah.
that might not be for this
Ooh.
episode.
Just lay it down now. We can take notes on it.
All right.
Well, you're gonna
Put it for later.
forget, yeah.
I
Like, you
am a
can't-
believer that you should pay people near the max you are ever going to pay them when you hire them for a given job.
Yes.
This bullshit of like, oh, I'm not going to pay you this now so that I can give you raises in the future. What the fuck is that? If they change jobs within your company, yeah, pay them more. That's a different job. But for a given job, there is a pay rate and you should pay that. This like,
Yeah.
oh, you'll start at 50,000. In 2 years, you'll get a couple raises, you'll be at 57,000. Why?
If you're lucky.
Why? Just give them 57,000 and create a dedicated employee.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my
It's like the
that's my hot
whole,
take for a different episode.
Dan Price of Gravity Payments that pays
Yes.
everyone a $70,000.
That's a little spicy right now.
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah.
Isn't he
yeah.
a little spicy?
He is very spicy. He stepped down as CEO and is currently in court for physically assaulting people.
Oh, I knew it was too good to be
Well,
true.
that's unfortunate.
I mean, the
But
company is
still.
the company is still doing great. The company is still doing the same thing now that he's gone. He's just a little spicy.
I mean, but he's also a little bit of a shit stirrer. But that's the whole thing. Like, that's
Yeah.
how you fucking change like the perception
Mhm.
of things. Is someone being like, "Hey, you guys don't actually have to make $32 million a year. Like, nobody needs to make $32 million a year if you can't fucking keep your employees fed and happy. Like, what's the point?"
And you can also be a great boss without hitting people. Just throwing that out there.
I
Fucking
mean,
turns out.
that's debatable. Ask some of my people. Yeah.
So I do want to throw out there, though, that employee overhead, the reason this is such a big part of this topic, is that's going to be a massive portion. I don't care what
Yeah.
business you own, the people part is going to be huge. Like 60 to 70% of your overhead costs, salaries. That's it.
There's really no way around it
Yeah.
if you're going to grow a business.
And I feel like that's one of the weird things is they always tell you to work at like try and get everyone to like 0.85 FTE. That way they can flex up for emergencies and things like that. But I feel like that's more conventional business wisdom. In a startup, you have to be like, when can I afford? Like, when is the soonest I can afford another person? Because if you're trying to grow your business, all you are thinking about is, like you said, Ben, that bottom line. What is the bare minimum I need to keep this business running? And like, when you can surpass that with the next person's salary, do it, because you're trying to just grow your business. So
Mhm.
you want another person in, taking on more things, taking on more tasks. But like for most of that, you're going to be living in your early life at like everyone's at 2.5 FTE and we're going to have a great time. But like, it's fun because I treat you like a person and because I think you're a person. What a concept. And that's how you grow a successful small business.
Yeah.
And again, it's really different between a VC funded business and a normal lifestyle new business. I feel like in a venture startup where the money goes is everyone's working at 110% FTE and they're all super stoked to be there. And then you pitch and you get even more money. And instead of relaxing, you do more cocaine and work at 130% FTE until you are the next Facebook.
But with more people.
But with more people. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
more
The money's
cocaine.
actually just for Adderall.
And with enough cocaine,
Yes.
maybe.
Mhm.
Okay, but like, do we know where the money goes?
Yes. I mean, I do. Let me
Create
lay
a
some
budget. Yeah.
budget. It goes to Excel is where it goes. It becomes magical numbers that aren't real in an Excel sheet that you should still understand.
I do love data. I
God,
just don't like
right?
to make the data.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Making the
Data is
data
my
is
favorite.
stressful. That's like real people's lives.
I love making the data. I hate extrapolating from the data.
Oh, that's good to know.
You wanna dive into that?
No,
You wanna talk to
Is it because you don't care about people?
maybe.
Yes.
So you don't care what the story is that the data tells you?
we should talk a little bit on strategies for how to break down your costs though. We keep
Yeah, I
saying
mean,
like
we should.
Yes.
Yeah.
like, hey,
Yeah.
understand your costs. 70% of it's going to be overhead. Great. What's the other 30%? How do I actually know how much it costs me to make a unicorn or cover one in glitter or serve people drinks from this unicorn? That is going to be unit analysis is the magic term. So physics nerd, unit analysis is the most powerful thing in the universe.
Ooh,
Yeah. Yeah. Let me give you some knowledge here.
the
So
most powerful thing in the universe. Bold
yeah,
statement.
you can work backwards with unit analysis to get to just about
That's
anything.
just fucking algebra. Like what
Yeah,
kind of shit are you talking?
it's genius. So say I've got I need to cover a unicorn in glitter and have it serve drinks from its horn. Great. There's a bunch of stuff going on. What if I could break down those costs into an understandable or measurable amount that I could use to then predict the future, right? If a bottle of vodka costs me $12, I can make I don't know, 12, 15 drinks. I'm not a bartender. I'm not good at this. From that bottle of vodka, I now have a overhead cost per drink. I have a whatever mixer you're adding this, whatever labor. If it takes 2 minutes to make this drink, take an hour wage, divide it into 2 minutes, and then add that dollar to this singular drink. So when you convert everything into the same units of either per drink, per hour, per bottle of vodka, per unicorn, per sprinkle, you can create a consistent or a normalized platform to analyze the rest of your business. And that's what you use Excel for. That's when you open an Excel sheet and you're like, okay, rent $2,000 a month for the space that we are in. How much per drink, how many cents per drink goes to paying rent? You can break that down with unit analysis.
How much of that requires actually being in operation to like fine tune? Like how much of it is very broad strokes, rough guess? I did my research, average cost of a vodka drink or a whiskey drink or a lager drink. Any drink that reminds
Drink
you
a
of the good
lager drink.
times,
He
or the
drinks,
drinks that
he
remind you of
drinks
the
the
bad
whiskey
times.
drink.
The whiskey drink.
But
He
any of
drinks
those,
lager
like,
drink.
how much of that is broad strokes, and then like 6 months in, you are able to fine tune a little bit more. Now it's stuck in everyone's head.
God damn it. You're the worst.
How does it go though?
Something
Go.
knows.
Pissing
So
the night away. That's okay.
there it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But you're talking about like order of magnitude impact. The
Yeah,
the
like I'm trying to figure out like how many drinks do I need to make per sprinkle, but then I find out that at a unicorn bar, people aren't really into stouts, but they're really into lemon drops. How much do I have to adjust my like
Mhm.
how much is in like how much is a live scale of I just need to adjust to stay in the black, and how much of it is this is where I want the business to go. I need this. I just need to get the numbers to match this.
Right. Which is definitely going to be order of magnitude. Again, physics, if it's close enough, if it's within a zero or a decimal point, you're probably right. And I feel like a lot of bar owners are going to fight me on this because they run on pretty small margins. But you need to find the thing or the unit that has the biggest impact, whether that's sprinkles. If sprinkles are in every single one of your drinks, they might cost, a tenth of a penny per sprinkle, but they're in every single one of your drinks. And so if that tenth of a penny goes up to 2/10 of a penny, that is a massive percent increase to what you are selling. So once you do this unit
200%.
analysis, yeah,
I was gonna
that's
say,
100%
I think I
increase in
know this
cost.
one. Yeah. It's
Uh,
times two. You guys know I only know two maths.
That's why I was
Times two is
surprised
one
you
of them.
got. That's why I was
You know,
surprised you were able to do the salary so fast.
Dude, I honestly I went to another plane of existence. I was like, oh my God, this is like 8 times 2, but like 80 times 2, which is worse than 8 times 2. So
It
yeah.
was amazing.
Who needs
So-
college? Go
So
on,
I'm going to
Ben, sorry.
use an example that is a little bit more clear, I think, because I understand it better. I've never run a bar. Full disclosure, don't run a bar based on this advice. Just talk to your friends that you know how to run a bar. But with the
We know people
health,
that run bars. We can help.
yeah. Ooh, we
Yeah.
should bring some bar owners
We go
this
to bars.
podcast. Oh yeah, I drink
Oh, we
alcohol.
should. Okay, go on.
But in the healthcare industry, so you will get reimbursed by insurance in the United States for a given procedure, for a given billing code. And that reimbursement rate is determined mostly by the insurance company. But say you get reimbursed $90 for the same billing code from one company, you get reimbursed $110 from another company, you get reimbursed $50 from a third, so on and so forth, until you have a massive spread of reimbursement rates for the exact same procedure. You can then have an average. Okay, we get reimbursed an average of $110 for this same procedure. We have 17 people administering this procedure 6 times a day. Cool, there's some stuff I can start to add up. $110 times number of procedures, that is a theoretical revenue stream. I have overhead costs of the salaries, again, like 17% or 70% of your overhead costs is going to be salaries. You have rent, administrative costs, legal, finance, whatever it might be. And then you can break down this business into the components of, or what percent of your revenue is what overhead costs. So rent might be 10% of your company, salaries might be 70%, so on and so forth. When you build a model and you find the thing that drastically changes all of those percentages, that's usually the hidden gem. And in healthcare, at least in my experience in like therapy and clinical services, that is average reimbursement rate. If I create a model of overhead of my practice between how much I pay people per session, what their benefits cost, what payroll tax is in the state of Oregon, when I model my entire business and one of the variables is average reimbursement rate, the difference in revenue between $110 and $111 is massive. Absolutely massive, like $10,000 a month kind of difference. And that is the kind of thing that you don't really realize. This is David's original question. You need to find these things that are orders of magnitude difference that are kind of hidden until you really model the business you're working with.
So like for me, if I'm doing a unicorn bar, I think unicorn upkeep is going to be my biggest cost. But that's actually going to be a pretty set fee. Once I get into the business, I realize its cost per sprinkle is really what's actually driving how much I need to charge for all of the things in my business. So I do the research and I say unicorns are expensive. It's a $10,000 a month leasing fee. As we found out, we lease. We lease our unicorns over a 10 years, 22% APR rate, which is rough, but they're mythical creatures, so I get it.
It'll happen.
Yeah, do that, and then, but that's all I've accounted for that, and then that does not change. But then I realize, holy shit, sprinkle costs, like, oh my God, there's war in the sprinkle fields of Sprinkletown. And now I can't
the Smurfs are at war.
I can't get my sprinkle exports anymore. That's where I'm like, oh shit, this is actually the driver of my business. How do you, as a business owner, how do you adjust to say like, oh shit, I've realized I've miscalculated this really poorly. How do you adjust to try and correct without like overcorrecting into putting all of your money into sprinkle exports and then losing your unicorn?
I am a nerd. And I firmly believe in attempting to model whatever you're doing. So if you have a business, it's stable and you're making money, still model it. Still open Excel and do this unit analysis and understand what percent of overhead cost is what percent of revenue or equates to what percent of revenue. What percent of your like materials cost equates to what percent of revenue. And then you can even assign a risk factor if we're talking about wars and things like that. Then you're like, okay, I actually need 3 sources of sprinkles because one of them might just stop supplying tomorrow and then I'm kind of fucked. But I think what that comes down to is even if you're stable, even if you're doing great, I still think you should model all of the costs of your business such that you can play with the variables. Because when that question comes up, when something rough happens, when your entire staff quits because you're a piece of garbage, when the Smurfs go to war and you can no longer get sprinkles, you can open this Excel sheet and it's not going to give you the answer. You still need to play with these variables of cost per or amount of, but you have a tool to start going, okay, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we reduced the overhead cost here? What if we charged more? Is it acceptable to charge more for this product? Because if we charged $2 more, we could make the same amount we used to despite the supply chain issues.
Can we use edible glitter instead of sprinkles because
Exactly.
of the war in Sprinkleton?
But until you do that kind of technical modeling, you're just guessing. You're guessing what components of your business you can play with. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to guess. You can make an Excel model and be a little bit more precise with that. I mean, there are still assumption tables, but
So what I'm hearing you say is vibes are not a good way to run a business.
no. If you run off vibes, like I'll grab a beer with you. That sounds great.
Listen, I run on vibes.
I will throw hands for vibes.
But I love your spreadsheet that like does those things. Like it's super helpful because it's like algebra where you're like, but it's like all the numbers, but then you can like play with the numbers and then it like does the math for you where it like to your point of what if we charged $110 per session instead of 100? Or what if we charged $150? Or what if we had 5 people instead of 4 people doing the things, like just being able to like play with the different numbers on stuff because that's hard to do when you're not a nerd.
And it's not. Welcome to tangent and rant number 2.
Ben, you're a nerd,
Okay.
So you like it. None of the rest of us do.
I'm
Hashtag
a nerd.
vibes. Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that you just get started, right? You don't have the entire Excel sheet planned out in your head. You type it up perfectly the first time. No, you're going to be deleting cells all over the place. You're going to be like, oh, fuck, that's not what that actually means. Scrap that part, read it. Like, this is going to take a hot minute. And the best way to do it is just to open Excel and go overhead costs in column A, and then no dollar values, just list out the shit you pay for in a given month. Start there. See what happens.
I wish that we could put comments on our screens.
Yeah.
So that when we're heckling Ben, that like we could just like type it so like people can see it. That'd be
What a
so
nerd.
great. Yeah, fucking
Well, it's like,
loser.
this
He's
is the
like, just
question.
open an Excel spreadsheet and like put numbers in.
Just put in numbers in,
Or
use
Google
the
Sheets.
math. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Like, so this is my biggest mistake in Excel, and I don't know that there's a solution. Does anyone know how to switch it from a Y orientation of data to an X orientation of data?
A pivot table?
Who's the fucking nerd now?
No, mostly what happens is I made one graph that pulls data in a certain way, and then I have to retype how I got
That's
it.
because you selected the X when you should have selected the Y, and you selected the Y when you should have selected the X.
But I want it to look a certain, I want the X-axis to be a certain thing.
Yeah, you select that thing to be the X-axis. I don't understand the question.
I mean, he's being very nice about calling you stupid though.
No, I mean, is there a function I can do? Because otherwise I just retype the shit into a new fucking
Can't you
table.
like copy paste?
You're gonna look for transpose.
From down to there.
If you have a big column and you want to make it a row, Google transpose.
Oh, there we go. See, there we go. That's what I needed.
I didn't know you meant the data set. I thought you meant like what you actually had as the y-axis data.
No,
and I was like, select the other set.
Because I built an entire function that pulled data out of a table, and then I got the data from the person, and they did the data down, and I had it built across.
Oh,
and I
that's
was
their
like,
you just
fault.
make
Just yell
them
at
fix
them.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
fucking make them do it again.
they get paid more
Hashtag
than me, so
toxic
they're more important. So
What is your title bigger?
no.
Oh,
Title.
all right. Do you know their boss?
Yes.
Okay. Do you
Start-
like their boss? Does their
Yeah,
boss
I love their boss. But the problem is their boss likes them too.
better?
Ooh.
I mean, they get paid more. So if
This is when you're gonna
hours,
find out.
That does not mean shit. There are a lot
just
of
mean
people who make a
hours of
lot of
effort.
money. Okay. All right. Okay. Well,
transpose is the function you're looking for. You can
You
actually.
got your fucking answer.
You can,
I don't think their boss likes me.
oh,
Their
That
boss
makes more
is
sense.
their boss
That
is
tracks.
cordial. Their boss is cordial in emails and helps me out, but I don't think they like me.
I like you, David.
Thanks. Calvin
That
doesn't.
says that actually says more about you, Ben, though. um, oh, Ben. Okay, so we'll work on corporate manipulation later. That can be like a whole different episode.
Oh my
Yes.
Oh, look, my
god.
cat's
Corporate
joining the
politics.
party.
I think soft
It's
power
an orange
versus
cat doing
yeah.
its best.
I think
His
soft
name's
power
Weasley.
versus hard power is a great topic to bring up.
What, you get more with sugar than vinegar or whatever the thing is?
Well, just like
I just-
there's things you can do with like this is my title, therefore this is what I can have people do, versus like soft power where you're like I've built up these relationships and
Oh,
therefore
I'm all about
I
yeah,
can
soft
get
power.
Can
yeah,
we just
so
call that episode Daddy?
or like I'm great when I'm
Daddy.
soft.
You know, like sometimes it's like cool that we're like buds.
That was the most wholesome thing I've ever heard. You know, sometimes it's cool that we're friends. You know, I
But then
appreciate you.
sometimes I wish you didn't talk. You know what we should do as an episode? Like this can be like our Halloween special is how we all met and then like our like largest conflict drama that we
yeah.
can share.
My favorite is that like my two defining conflicts with you do not even remember. It did not even ping on the radar, but for me they're like
I
the two
beat your
largest
fucking
conflicts.
ass.
I
and
know who
don't
won
even
those
remember.
conflicts.
Who?
Kristen.
Well, yeah,
She
because I
doesn't
don't
even
remember.
the interaction.
They're like core memories for David, and he's like so traumatized that he got his ass beat for shit that I actually did by I beat his ass for shit that I did. Oh, we're fine. Welcome to your 30s. So anyway,
Where does the money go?
Where does the
where
money
does
go?
the money go? Make a budget?
I mean, we haven't even talked about budgets. I've just talked about you should model your business and learn Excel.
But that's not where the money goes. I feel like that's a completely different topic
But I think
than where does
budgets
the
are
money
kind
go?
of worthless.
Yeah.
Like you can
but like,
quote me on
where
that.
does the money go?
It goes to overhead, I think, is what we largely determine. Okay, it goes to salaries. It goes to human overhead because that is super important. People are people, and labor costs a lot of money. And with the current inflation, it costs more and more and more money.
8.5%. Yeah.
Yeah, fucking yikes. And that's largely where the money goes. But you should know. I mean, this is kind of impossible to truly do for a business. Like your numbers will not be accurate, but your pipe dream, your holy grail, your goal is to understand that for every dollar I spend for this business, I make $1.23. So I have that profit margin. That's your holy grail, is to connect every cost and take your revenue and do that unit analysis, that model. How much do I make per employee, per drink, per night, per whatever it might be, and try to say that for every dollar I make $1.23. And it won't be accurate. I guarantee it will not be accurate. It is still an estimate with assumption tables, but that is your goal, to make a stable business.
So the other thing that I'm learning from revenue stream is that your bottom line, your bare minimum you can possibly make, must equal or exceed people's expectations of what they should pay for your service.
Yes.
That's very good.
Otherwise you're just not a business, you're a charity.
Man, that should be a white paper.
Yeah.
That's let's publish that.
I'm sometimes smart.
I'm sometimes smart. David Sullivan.
Has degree.
That's what the college got me.
Crippling anxiety. Oh no, I didn't go to college, and I still have that. So
I got summary abilities.
In summation,
Webster's dictionary defines
definition as the explanation of a word that I just used. Okay. Anyway, so where does the money go? No one knows. But
unicorns. Yeah.
Yep.
Unicorns aren't real. Money is not real.
You watch
Still your
math.
job to figure it out.
and find the thing that hurts you the most
Ooh,
and
yeah.
make that the focus of your business?
Oh, I was
I
like,
don't know.
oh my God.
That
That
was
got real dark.
straight to the core.
Jesus
I don't know if it's
fucking
the thing that
Christ.
hurts you the most, because I would argue that your human overhead, your salaries are going to be the thing that hurts you the most, is your biggest cost, but that is not your most fundamental
But
variable.
I mean the delta that hurts
Yeah,
you the most.
find the
thing
delta.
that changes and will hurt you from
Mhm.
changing the most.
Acceleration, I believe, is the nope, not even gonna. I see Kristen's face. Find,
Pajama
find
kid.
the variable that changes a little but changes a lot of revenue is your goal.
Yeah, see, because like we were using like a library of vocabulary, and then David was like Delta, and like we already like you can't. That's like a new
I mean,
episode. Like, you can't just.
you gotta find the nonlinear variable is
Yeah,
where
I
you
thought
gotta
Delta
go with
was
that.
cleaner.
No, I mean
I
nonlinear is more accurate.
I started with the thing that hurts you the most. So
That was like, who hurt you?
Fucking deep.
Everything is
Everything
terrible.
is terrible. Fucking nailed it.